Hi everyone, welcome back to Farrand Film. We are back again with a top 10 this time, which I think, to be honest, might be the first top 10 we've done since we decided to start putting stuff on YouTube. So this is a bit weird. It's just Ollie and I, two-man booth. And what we're doing is we're doing top 10 Dream Team. We're doing top 10 sequels. Now, we've done this with a bit of caveats in that we're talking second film of a series, franchise, trilogy, however it is that you want to spin it, or just a straight sequel. There might only be a 1 and 2, but you can't have a third, you can't have a fourth, you can't have a sixth, because otherwise that's just everything and anything, isn't it?
It's just madness.
So the example I was using yesterday, when I correctly used it, was Iron Man 2 would be a yes, Iron Man 3 would be a no. Iron Man 2 isn't on my list.
I mean, mine neither. Spoilers, I guess.
Surprise. Two things. Number one, actually three things, I suppose. Number one being, we did have a bit of a discussion about part twos and whether they count, because Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2 would have easily made my list. But we've decided against that. So it's not in there.
Because Deathly Hallows is already a sequel. So
yeah, essentially. The other one is I've purposely put on my Godfather t-shirt to just reference the elephant in the room, that I've still not seen it and I've not seen the second one. So if you're watching this and you're going, where's Godfather Part 2?
Same, by the way. I've not seen Godfather 2. I've seen The Godfather. Everyone says the second one is better, which would be amazing if it is, because The Godfather is an incredible film. I have not seen it, so it's not going to be on my list.
I apologize. And then
a 5-hour film.
Yeah, and then the third thing to say is I think we've both got an awful lot of honorable mentions that we might want to crack
Last
through.
count, I have 7.
Well, I did a long list, so there's currently 22 films that didn't make my top 10. So I'm not going to list. I'm not going to list all of them. I will just pick out a couple that didn't make my list that I just want to sort of shine a light on. Ones that I really like, so things like A Quiet Place Part 2 didn't quite make my list. Shrek 2, Toy Story 2, Addams Family Values, Saw 2, really like Saw 2. I think of the Hobbit films, Desolation of Smaug is very, very good. I do. My favourite of the Lord of the Rings is Fellowship, but Two Towers is very good, but that's not in my list.
What?
Yeah.
My God! Yeah. What is in your list?
Well, hang on, because this is the controversial bit, right? When I told Ty that we were doing this, Ty said there is only one right answer, and he said it's Terminator 2: Judgment Day.
Okay,
it's not in my list. And Aliens isn't in my list either.
How am I meant to take you seriously?
The one that I do want to mention that was very, very close to making my list was The Hunger Games: Catching Fire.
Oh, give over.
Hang on. Right, this is my pitch of this episode. Right, a sequel should better the original. It should build the world and it should adapt on it. Right, Hunger Games: Catching Fire does that and then some.
Yeah, but it had a low bar to begin with.
And what's up with Hunger Games?
It's just it's a rip-off of Battle Royale.
Oh, give over. Not getting into that. Right, so anyway, right. Let's just address these then. Right, Terminator 2, I know it's a great film. I've just not seen it a lot. This is my list. These are my favourite sequels, right? So that's why it's not in there. Aliens, I think I've seen Aliens once. And I know it's better than Alien. But again, not quite there. Okay? I mean, Matrix Reloaded was even in my shortlist at one point.
How?
I don't mind Matrix Reloaded.
It's atrocious.
Come on, it's not as bad as Revolutions.
No, but come on, that's like saying oh, that fraud case isn't as bad as a murder. It's still pretty bad.
So I know right now you're not going to like some of the things that I've put in mind, but you know this is where we are. So go on then, Oliver. Give us your What have you
Right.
got?
Two of them are weird in that they are Disney direct-to-video sequels that are so much better than they have any right to be.
Okay.
Pocahontas 2,
Right.
which is actually, I think, better than the first. Like, if Pocahontas had been about her going off to London and her being the fish out of water there, I think that would have been a much more interesting story. Lion King 2,
Simba's Pride.
unbelievable film.
Mm-hmm.
There's an argument that the opening song, not the shots, before you get up on your Lion King high horse, the opening song is better. He Lives in You. I think there was a
He
shout
Lives in
for it
You is an absolute banger.
like to the point where it makes it into the stage show, and I was so happy where it came in. Then we've got the ones that I like, but realistically they were never going to make it in. So you got Incredibles 2. Really like Incredibles 2. I know it's not for everyone, but I really like it. Batman Returns. That was umming and ahhing quite a bit. I know that's a popular one. Paddington 2.
Okay.
Because the Paddington films, again, are better than they have any right to be. They're really nice. They're just nice, wholesome films, and they're really funny. How to Train Your Dragon 2. Arguably the best of that franchise. It's between 1 and 2, a little bit for that. One you reminded me of in our last podcast, Rescuers Down Under.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah.
Didn't quite make it into the top 10. And then these two were really close. These two were really close into making it in. I have Blade Runner 2049.
Yeah.
Which pained me to not put it in because Georgia reminded me of that one. It's like, oh my God, yeah, I love Blade Runner 2049. Because I think with the first Blade Runner, the pace is a bit off because it's like, oh, look at all of our impressive sets. And modern film goers are like, great. That's like a 15-second bit of a Marvel film today. We see Wakanda. We see Atlantis in a DC film or whatever, whereas they spend minutes showing it off and it is a bit slow. And the last one is The Last Jedi. Because I love The Last Jedi. I know you don't like Last Jedi, but you had a bunch of amazing films not on your list. So you can get stuffed if you think I'm going to sit here and feel guilty about having Last Jedi as effectively my number 11.
Oh, God. Right. Do you want to go first or shall I go first?
You go first.
Okay. We have said this actually, that obviously we don't know each other's lists, but we are pretty certain that we know each other's number ones.
Yeah, we're not idiots.
So,
if you've been long-time listeners, you know our number ones.
You know our number ones. It's not. It's
I think
new.
I think we're largely okay with each other's number ones as well, other than the fact that I am fairly certain you don't have my number one in your list.
I don't have your number one in my list.
You are a shithouse, sir. I don't care that I saw it on your podcast.
How dare you!
I don't teach at Waterhead anymore. I don't care.
I don't teach at Waterhead.
Not Waterhead. Oasis. That's how little I care. Can't even remember the name of the place. Disgraceful.
Anyway, my number 2. Now I
You're
did
jumping
this list
there.
a lot.
You missed
out
my
number 2. It's because I've read the number 2. I've read number 2 and I've got my number 2. Right, my number 10. I've done this list a lot, okay, and I've gone back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and I think the highest position this got to at one point was number 2. And then eventually it worked its way down. Spider-Man 2. 2004, sequel to the, I was going to say the original, I suppose it is the original 2002. We're talking Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. Again, builds on that world just a little bit more, introduces a really well-known comic book villain in Doc Ock, moves the arc forward with Mary Jane, moves the arc forward with Harry Osborn, even moves it forward with Aunt May and things like that. You begin to see his development. It is the one where he loses his mojo, you know. It's the one where he can't quite shoot his webs for whatever reason. Yeah, he might need a couple of tablets in there. But I think in terms of drama, in terms of spectacle, in terms of set pieces, performances, like Alfred Molina, you know, there's a reason why they got him back for No Way Home. Like, he's an absolute, he's like an absolute don. And it was massive. 3rd highest grossing film of the year that year, 789 million. which still is a feat that films now don't make. You know, it's a massive, massive number. And I think in terms of building again that world, like I'd fallen in love with Spider-Man when the first one came out, and this just emphasized it even more. It was we need to go to the cinema to go and watch that. We can't miss that film. And yeah, it would be higher, but I feel like I've got validation for everything else on my list, or at least my validation.
Yeah, I was about to say you don't have mine based on what you've omitted. Jesus.
So that's my number 10, Spider-Man 2.
Well, I have started off with one of the ones in your kind of long list, Toy Story 2.
Okay.
Toy Story 2 at number 10. And you guys know how much I love a Pixar film. So weirdly, there's a lot of quality in these sequels. Like there is a huge amount of quality in my sequels. And with Toy Story, my main love of Toy Story 2 is this is the film that made Pixar the studio they are today. This is what gave them that reputation, because Toy Story was kind of like, that's good. That's good. That's a good film. You know, a little bit ugly in places, but yeah, it's fine. Bug's Life clearly didn't do as well as they wanted it to, critically and commercially, and it is a bit swept up to the wayside now. Toy Story 2 was the one. That was the one where Pixar figured out how to do the writing that gives you that emotional gut punch. So When She Loves Me is still, you know, a moment in films. The rug pull for the villain is still a moment in films. The way that Buzz flips around the "you are a toy" message round onto Woody in this film is really, really clever. And it goes on, for the most part, to set up a fantastic trilogy and then a weird quadrilogy that we slightly disagree on, but the fourth one is a disappointment. But like, this is what made Pixar Pixar, and they were able to springboard off of this and give us the likes of The Incredibles, the likes of Up, the likes of Coco, the likes of Ratatouille, all of these like Up, Inside Out, stuff like that. All of these top tier films. This is what started it off. And it does exactly what you said a sequel should do. Carries on the story perfectly, ups the stakes. Production value is so much better. The jokes are funnier. So yeah, and the video game
Throw in
time
a
for it
couple
on
of new
PS1.
characters.
Yeah,
the video game. Yeah.
Oh my god, just playing as Buzz, walking around those environments. I could do it today and be happy.
You can do it today. It's now on backwards compatibility.
Oh my god, I need to get the disc again.
Okay, my number 9, one that you've already mentioned, and I say we toyed with this idea. I toyed with this idea of doing just a legacy sequels list because there's so many that were, for whatever reason, Hollywood have jumped on the nostalgia train and have gone, right, well, let's do a sequel to this now. Let's do a sequel to this now. Blade Runner 2049.
Whoa, what a film.
Like, what a film. What a film. Now, I'll sort of level with everybody right now. I don't like Blade Runner. And I'm not saying that as somebody who watched it once and just went, nah. I've tried it a good couple of times. I tried it once on Blu-ray, so I thought at least I'm seeing it quite visually, as it's supposed to be seen. And then the second time I saw it, I actually saw it in the cinema, because when I used to work at Cineworld, me and my mate Dan, on a Monday night, when the first film came out, which was usually around about 9:30, we would go into one of the screens and we'd watch a film. And we could pretty much pick anything because we just did it through a Blu-ray player. So I thought, well, if I'm seeing it on the big screen, at least now I can maybe see what the fuss is about. And I didn't get it. And I still don't get it. And I think it's absolutely fine and dandy and great if you love it. More power to you. But it's just it wasn't for me. So then when 2049 came around, I thought, well, am I going to be that bothered by that? But then it was the mix of having Ryan Gosling as your lead, who I love. I think he's a great actor. But then more importantly, directed by Denis Villeneuve and, written by Hampton Fankner, Michael Green. But more importantly, shot by Roger Deakins. I thought, I need to go and check this out. I need to go
You've
and
got
see
Anna
what they're
de
doing.
Armas, who is a
Anna de
princess.
Armas,
I love
yeah,
her.
like, and it blew me
Batista.
away. Yeah, Batista's in it. Yeah.
Batista proving that he's easily the best actor to have got a mainstream acting career post wrestling.
Yes.
Like The Rock's obviously the biggest, but Batista can actually act.
Oh, but like I know this is probably going to go out probably New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. We're recording this on the 19th of December. I can't wait to see Glass Onion on Netflix because it comes out on Friday. So I want to make sure that I watch that before I do my top 10 of the year. So I think just the sort of ensemble of everybody, the bringing together of all these different minds, and then even still, they're paying homage to the original. Now, I know I said that I don't like the original, but I can't deny how much it's infected pop culture. And seeing Harrison Ford again as Deckard, you know, even his performance in this, I think is really, really good. And it's just a stunning, stunning film to watch.
It's gorgeous.
It's one of those that, like, when I teach aesthetics, I have to at least either show a clip or show a couple of stills from, because it is gorgeous. And again, it's a film that I didn't think I was going to care about, and I did. And it was one of, if not my favorite of 2017. And it's one of them that I will just go back and watch as a bit of a comfort film, which might sound a little bit weird. But if I know that I'm spending a day at home and maybe Ruby's not here and I've got some work to do, I'll stick a film on in the background. It'd be one of them, you know.
Wouldn't for me, because I'd want to pay attention to it, because it is. I'd want to
Yeah, but I
actually
think I've
absorb
seen it
again.
enough now.
I don't think I have. I've only seen it twice, I think.
Right, okay.
Yeah. I loved as well, because we were obviously going into it, there were loads of theories about Kay and, you know, oh, is he a replicant? Is he not? And they just got it out of the way, like, immediately, because he gets into a fist fight with Dave Bautista and wins. It's like, oh, okay. And then it's like, oh, you're a replicant who hunts replicants. And I like that. That's an interesting take. And this weird angle of a replicant was able to procreate and stuff like that. Is this really like that hook, that moment where you realize that Rachel became pregnant was like, oh my God. Like, even like you said, not caring that much about the original, just being aware what replicants are, why that would be a big deal. It's like, oh yeah, this is I'm intrigued by this now.
But being pulled into even scenes that are as simple as cells interlinked, cells interlinked, cells interlinked, and it's like your baseline is well off, you know, and it's like it's being pulled into the sort of intrigue of all that and wondering how it is that these people are maneuvering in this world. You know, the idea of, again, the Wallace Corporation being this sort of big overseeing evil conglomerate, which I think sci-fi films do really well, of having, you know, building that world.
Tyrell in the original one. I don't know if they really explained what happened in the.
I don't think they did, or at least not off the top of my head, anyway.
Because I originally thought as well, because in the original film, Roy Batty, who I do love in that film, he's easily the best bit of the first film. He like full on thumbs into the eyes of the guy Tyrell. So I thought that Jared Leto was meant to be him because, you know, he's blind.
Yeah.
I thought that originally, but it is Wallace, isn't it? It's not Tyrell. So it is a different guy. But yeah, it's stunning film.
What's your number 9?
My number 9 is Shrek 2. Very different tonally from what we've been talking about. It's a similar vibe as well. Like, I think Shrek gets a lot of praise. And I do agree with most of that praise, but it is quite a cliched story. You know, it's, oh, you're not, if you give us the time to explain ourselves, then there's a bit more underneath the skin. And like, there's the whole liar reveal nonsense behind it. And you know, they're going to get together. And it is a very cliched story for being something that puts itself on a bit of a pantheon, or certainly people put it on this platform of, oh, it does away with those cliches. This is what actually does away with them, and it takes the mick out of them. You know, the idea of Far, Far Away being this parody of Disney World and Hollywood kind of rolled into one. And the idea of the fairy tale creatures, like the main ones being celebrities in that Hollywood, I really like that. Jennifer Saunders as the fairy godmother is unreal. She is excellent in every single part of this film. I Need a Hero as a villain song impeccable. The jokes are funnier in this film. Like, I think, again, Eddie Murphy suffers a little bit. We spoke in the last podcast. Oh, just shout this line and it'll be funny.
Yeah.
Whereas here, he's given genuinely funny lines, or he comes up with genuinely funny lines. Puss in Boots is a fantastic addition to the cast. The way they incorporate the fairy tale creatures from the last one is fantastic. I love her dad, Fiona's dad, in this, because you get why he's horrible at first and his turnaround as he kind of starts to understand and stuff like that. I love it.
Because I think part of me just sort of wondered whether, do you think Shrek 1 might have just been a safe thing for DreamWorks to do as a sort of, get this out there, we need to make a name for ourselves?
Kind of, but keep in mind, Ants came before and it did okay.
Yeah.
And they did a couple of Disney, they did like an attempted Disney killing with like Prince of Egypt, which was incredible and really gets overlooked. I think Shrek to me almost seems like Katzenberg's juvenile, oh, screw you, Disney, I hate you and your smelly, stupid thing. Like, and that kind of shows.
Yeah.
Whereas
I think Shrek 2 is very meta in that they've
Yes.
kind of gone, this was successful, let's build on it, but we're going
Yeah.
to try and do this other thing now.
Well, the way it parodies and lampoons stuff is clever. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not like, ah, do you get it? Do you get it?
Yeah,
It's not
yeah.
like smearing your face in it.
A lot
It
of
is
it's very
clever
subtle.
with it. Yeah, it is quite subtle.
Yeah.
It is a lot of like blink and you'll miss it stuff, which I
Yeah.
love. But yeah, it's just, again, improves on the original in every single way. It's easily the best in the franchise.
Oh, definitely.
Because the first two are the
Definitely.
only ones that are really any good. And then
Yeah, it really dropped down with the third and
yeah, but like
forever
everything
after.
in this is great. Like the action in it is good, the comedy in it's good, the heartfelt moments as well. Because the bit where they kind of break up, it's because they're manipulated into doing it. It's not because they fall out and you know they're going to get together at the end. Like, you know they're going to get together at the end, but you're willing them to do it because they've been manipulated into that situation, not because they've just had a misunderstanding.
Yeah.
Which is a much better way of doing it, having bad people try and derail something that's really, really good for you.
Yeah. No, it was one that came up on my longer list. Again, the idea of building a world. I'm going to keep coming back to it because I just think that's ultimately what a good sequel should do.
Yeah.
So my number 8 is my only non-English language film on my list. And it is The Raid 2.
God damn it! I forgot about The Raid 2. Oh! Sorry,
Oliver.
I forgot about The Raid 2, didn't I?
But it's so good, isn't it?
Mate, that would have been so high on my list. Let me have a look now. Let me have a look now. This would genuinely be coming in at like number 6 for me, looking at my list now.
Yeah.
Christ's sake, I knew there was something I'd forgotten.
This is like the amount of times that I went back through my letterbox, and like some of them don't even come up because they're not a 2 or they're not a whatever, you know. But yeah, The Raid 2. Like,
oh my God, I have seen it once and it has left such an impression on me.
I love The Raid and I love The Raid 2. I think for me, I love the sort of more tight-knit feel of The Raid. But again, building a world. This built a world. My God. To go from a film that is just set in an apartment block and it's brutal to then set it across, like, it's Jakarta, isn't it? Just set it across the city of Jakarta with mob bosses and criminal underworld and
intrigue and undercover. Yeah.
It's like Heat, you know.
Yeah.
It's like another film that's gonna come up later on. It's absolutely blew me away. And
is it Uo the star of it?
Iko Uwais.
Yeah. Like, because you would forgive him for being like a Tony Jaa type, where he just is fantastic at fighting and his acting is like it doesn't really matter. He is giving like an Oscar-worthy performance in this film.
Oh yeah.
His acting, his just through his facial expressions a lot of the time, the way he just constantly looks like a broken man. It's unreal. Like, genuinely, between this and a film you have mentioned and may or may not be appearing on my list later, it's the shout for the perfect action film.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
there's literally nothing wrong with it.
But this is the thing. Like, I feel like there's going to be students listening to this, maybe just general, listening to this, who feel like they've seen good action films and will say to you, "These are the best action sequences," but you haven't seen anything until you've seen The Raid or The Raid 2.
Yeah, you haven't
Like-
seen the tracking shots. You haven't seen the baseball and hammers fight in the corridor. You've not seen the karambit fight in the kitchen.
John Wick is taking some of this, but
I feel like that's the way it incorporates guns into it as well, which is clever.
Yeah.
But Equilibrium was doing that years ago,
but like that whole thing of I'll teach you everything you know, but I won't teach you everything I know. Like you're not going to take everything from The Raid. Like I highly recommend that you go. Like I remember when this came out in the cinemas, and I can't remember the last time. Probably Parasite, maybe, where a quote unquote foreign language film had such a following behind it and such a groundswell behind it, because all these people along the way had, got wind of it.
Even something as good as like Old Boy, didn't get that kind of adulation.
Yeah, and it's all happened, and I do feel like it's died down a little bit, because I know that they've been talking for whatever reason about making an American remake of sorts, and I don't think that needs to happen. But I feel like it's almost like the mini series in there almost. But yeah, that's my number 8. That's The Raid 2.
Because you can forgive it as well for being like, oh, but it's just about the fighting. But like even the car chases in it.
Oh
are
my
incredible.
God! Just like the guy hanging out the car.
Yeah.
I
need to watch it again. It's been entirely too long since I've seen The Raid too. And I'll need to watch The Raid actually subtitled, because I watched it dubbed, and that's obviously a bit.
Oh no,
something's up there.
Yeah.
What are we on, number 8?
We're on number 8.
I'm on the first one that I suspect will show up in your list at some point later.
Okay.
And it is Winter Soldier.
Okay.
Because you made this a lot easier as well by saying you couldn't have third films, because it was really umming and ahhing, like, do I put Civil War?
Civil War would have been right up there.
It would have been right up there, as would Spider-Man No Way Home as well.
If we did it, this is for another time. This is for next half term. The third in a series.
So specific.
Yeah. Civil War would be up there. No Way Home would be up there.
But what a leap in quality as well, because
oh my God.
I think First Avenger gets like crapped on a little bit. Like it's okay. I think we put it at like a 2-2 or something.
It's a 2-2.
Like
I was just going to say to you, it's a 2. It's the embodiment of a 2-2 film.
Yeah, I think it was between that and Hulk for like the weakest of that original run of films. Like other than like of original ones. I'm not counting Iron Man 2, even though I know that's in phase 1. But like out of the origin stories of each of those original Avengers, this was possibly the weakest between this and Hulk. And to step it up as much as it did for the sequel, to turn it into this like, because it makes so much sense as well that, originally Cap is just fighting the good fight against the bad guy and whatever. And now that he's, because it was much easier to fight the good fight back then because you knew who the enemy was, and now you don't.
Yeah. And now they're hiding in plain sight.
And they embody that so well. And there's even that little Easter egg of Gary Shandling's character, who you hate because he stabbed Tony Stark with a badge and called him a prick. Revealing him as a Hydra agent, and you're there just like, I knew it!
Yeah.
Straight away. Just the intrigue is there, the introduction of Sam Wilson, the Winter Soldier, which they tried to keep as a surprise, but anyone who's read a comic knows who it is.
Yeah, very ham-fisted, but...
And it doesn't make sense how he becomes a Winter Soldier either, because he fell off the train, and then Zola was captured, but Zola was there picking him up from the train. Yeah, timelines don't quite add up, but you get a character that George hates the Winter Soldier as well.
Really?
The character, she hates Bucky. She can't be doing with him. I really like him as this kind of
I
like
like Bucky.
broken man who has been programmed, and his design
Mm.
is so cool. And that moment where he turns around and catches the shield with his
Yes.
vibranium arm, you just get chills. It's so cool.
It's just, to use a word that I don't even think is a word, the Russos contemporized. That's definitely not a word. Captain America.
They made Captain America. They made him relevant.
Yeah.
They made him
in the
massively
first
relevant
one,
in a modern world. Yeah.
Like I've said this to you and Holly and probably other people on this podcast before, that I sometimes struggle with period films in that, like, I don't quite relate to them. I don't quite, whatever it is. And when I watched Captain America, I was like, oh, there's a lot of stuff that's oldie. Da, da, da. This was like, no, now he's here. Now he's in this time. We're going to make him interesting now, because actually he's been pretty basic for a while.
Yeah.
Even in the Avengers film, I thought so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Nice. Right. Number 7. It's that time of year, Ollie. So
oh, Christ,
if this comes out on New Year's Eve, what will I have done a week ago?
You'll have watched an overrated pair of films and told
You
your
shut your
daughter
face.
the same goddamn fact about a tarantula, where Daniel Stern wasn't allowed to scream, because if he did scream, he'd scare the tarantula and the tarantula would bite him in the face.
Yeah. Number 7's Home Alone 2.
You're supporting Donald Trump here. I hope you realise that.
I hope this year, when Channel 4 show it, that they cut that
him
bit
out. They cut him out,
and
yeah.
it's just sort of like there's a dad somewhere in the front room going, I'm about to say this thing now, that, oh, look, that's Donald Trump, and then straight away he just goes straight into the lobby. I mean, it's not as good as the first one.
So it breaks your rule. It doesn't build on the...
Hang on.
It doesn't build on the story. It doesn't build on the characters. All it does is put it in a different situation. It's the same story again.
Hang on. Right. It builds on the characters. Yeah. It builds on the wet bandits. They're now the sticky bandits.
What? Because they're now immortal. Because they're in several situations that should immediately kill them. Like Daniel Stern.
That's why it's so funny.
Takes 4 bricks to... But why should, like... if it was a cartoon, I'd get it. But they're not portraying it as, like, this weird little cartoon live action world. Like, Kevin's meant to be in peril. Just, oh, God.
I love it, and I'm not going to stop loving it. And Ruby loves it.
I know
Ruby loves watching it at Christmas, and, like, she already said to me now, like, can we watch Kevin? Yeah, and it's like, no, when do we watch Kevin? I think
she just fancies Kevin.
And she says it's Christmas Eve that we watch Kevin. So yeah,
I'm going to show her modern day Macaulay Culkin. And it's like, this
don't
is
you
Kevin.
Dare scar my daughter.
Yeah, this is who you're in love with.
I will say this though, you know what's awful and possibly my new worst film I've ever seen? Home Sweet Home Alone.
I can imagine. Is that the one with Rob Delaney in it?
Yeah. It's so bad. Like Ruby was like, "Oh, let's watch that," and I then, as out of like morbid curiosity, I was like, "Yeah, let's watch it." Oh my god, the script is awful. The acting is awful. The whole thing is awful. It's awful.
Well, I remember that about Home Alone 4 as well. Like, to the credit of Home Alone, the script is fantastic. Yeah. Although that has reminded me, actually, George's favourite Christmas film is also a John Hughes film.
Planes, Trains and Automobiles?
Nope.
What?
Miracle on 34th Street.
Oh, yeah, because he did it, yeah.
He did the remake, and it, like...
That was when
I can't believe it took me that long to realise it, because it's got his sticky, sickly sweet fingerprints all over it, doesn't it?
How dare you? You've done enough offending me today. Disgrace.
Oh,
absolute
Christ.
disgrace.
Home Alone
Don't talk
2.
about my boy, man. Right. Yeah, so that's Home Alone 2. It's that time of year. It's the most wonderful time of year. So that's in at number 7. What's your number 7?
We finally have a crossover.
Oh, Home Alone 2?
Yeah, sure.
Oh.
Spider-Man.
Oh, here he is. Here he is.
Spider-Man 2. This was originally quite a bit... I was umming and ahhing about this. This was originally 6.
Okay.
It was originally 6. I just switched around the 6 and the 7 because I think everything we talked about so far in terms of like building on the world that's been established in the previous film, 6 does slightly better. And I was umming and ahhing about this or Homecoming because I've tried to do it of one per franchise.
You mean Far From Home?
No, exactly. It would have been No Way Home, but we've said no to seconds.
Oh, right, okay.
I'm not a big fan of Far From Home. I like it, but I think it's easily the weakest of Holland's Spider-Man films. So it was either going to be that or No Way Home, thinking I'll have one Spider-Man film. And out of the two, it would be, but we said second films only.
Second.
And for me, it is between No Way Home and this, maybe Spider-Verse, for the best Spider-Man film.
Mm-hmm.
And I would be curious to come back to this in about a year's time and see if my opinion is still the same, because Across the Spider-Verse should be out by that time. The trailer looks sick. I didn't realize Oscar Isaac was going to be our antagonist. Yes, please. Yes, already hype. I need to watch Spider-Verse again and make Georgia actually stay awake for it because she fell asleep.
It's not that long of a film.
I know. I mean, the only thing you didn't talk about is something we have already talked about, because we did do in-depth reviews of each of the Spider-Man films. We have a Raimi episode, a Web episode, which is hilarious, and a Marvel episode. Please feel free to go back and check them, where we said all of the right things about this. And we talked to death correctly about the train sequence, which has still not been topped in a Spider-Man film in terms of action sequences.
They tried. Even to the point in No Way Home where they were like, look, we've got a train.
Yeah, they did try, but nope. Not as good. Not as good. Like, it's just the score makes it so tense. Doc Ock being slimy and throwing civilians out is great. Just, what a film. What a film. Because this is like a follow-on as well from one of my big cinema experiences as a kid, where I got surprised by being taken to this weird cinema to watch the first Spider-Man. I was just hooked. It was a couple of days after my 10th birthday. And I went to this one. I told you about it on like Film Files. And it was like senior March where we went to see it. I was like, oh my God. And then my mate's birthday party was the next day. And we were watching Spider-Man. We were meant to be watching something else. So I saw it twice in a row.
Nice,
and I fell in love with that film. And this was like, this is great. Love this film. Horror bit in the middle as well, where the tentacles come to life.
Your Sam Raimi bit. Yeah.
You're Evil Dead.
Your Evil Dead bit.
The camera attached to it there, so it's moving along and everything else is moving around the inside. Like, yes.
Right. My number 6. It's still that time of the year, Ollie. Still the most wonderful time of the year.
What else is a Christmas sequel?
What else is a Christmas sequel?
You're not having Die Hard 2 on there. And
am I having Die Hard 2?
And for spoilers, don't worry, neither am I. I hate Die Hard 2.
Good. In terms of number 3, he's Die Hard with a Vengeance.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That one's weirdly not a Christmas film, though, which gives argument to the idea that Die Hard isn't a Christmas film. I can't think. I'm gonna kick myself, I know.
Batman Returns.
Oh, duh. But yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I mentioned it in my honourable mentions.
You did. You've already mentioned it. It's a fantastic film. And I'll be honest, I much prefer this to the 89. No, I do.
No, not for me, Dave.
But if I'm honest, I think it might be because I remember watching this as a kid. I know I definitely shouldn't have watched this as a kid.
Yeah.
Mom,
what's Catwoman doing there, and why do I feel weird?
Who's Michelle Pfeiffer? Like, Adam, try and spell her name. Nope. And but again, building the world, introducing these characters. Catwoman, Penguin. Penguin is so perfectly cast.
Yes.
Danny DeVito, like, best role I think of his, without a doubt.
No, I'm agreeing with all of that. I don't think Penguin is perfectly realized in this, especially with it being a Burton film and the angle they try and go for. Can you imagine the angle that he because he starts off as a bit of a bad egg when you first see him. Can you imagine if he'd been kind of corrupted into that?
Yeah.
So if he was played as a much more tragic figure.
Yeah.
Like,
the whole Burton inflection is the fact that you give him flippers as hands.
Yeah, but it would also be like the Edward. Oh, he's just misunderstood, and he is this kind of. I'm not saying he's like lovely when you first meet him, but it would have been a nice Burton touch. The idea that Max is the one that corrupts him and turns him into a villain.
Yeah.
And then,
fair enough.
And he's building him up. He's like, he genuinely wants to be the mayor and he genuinely wants to be helpful, but he's a bit monstrous. You know, like he could still bite the guy's nose and stuff, but he doesn't need to be a sex pest.
Yeah.
And like,
fair enough.
You know what I mean? Like you could make him just this kind of unsocialized, animalistic boy who was abandoned as a kid. And then he finds his parents and mourns them or whatever. And then because he is kind of shunned a bit, or he realizes he's been taken for a ride, that's when he goes for the plot of murdering all of Gotham's firstborn sons.
Mm-hmm.
That's a Burton direction for the Penguin that you'd think, yeah, that'd be perfect.
Yeah,
he's fantastic. Don't get me wrong. It's not DeVito's fault. Everything about DeVito is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's the best realization of the character you could have. I wouldn't have minded him being a bit lecture with Catwoman because who wasn't? But
you know,
yeah.
And then I think a great Christopher Walken performance as well as Max. Schneck,
I think he's called.
Shrek,
yeah, Max
it
Shrek.
is Shrek, yeah.
And he's very understated, isn't it? Bruce, shame on you. And I love the idea that the guy playing his son is just doing the best Christopher Walken impression that he can. Like,
you always defer to the senior. This is what you've got to do.
Yeah.
The junior always defers.
We gotta go downstairs now. In order
your hair looks.
Yeah, and this is really the one where it's like, yo, Batman is not afraid to kill people in this. Like, he straps the bomb to that guy.
Yeah.
Like, he's just not afraid to kill people at all. It's hilarious.
I just got struck by something on the Wikipedia page. For whatever reason, next to the cast bit, they have a picture of Michael Keaton in 2002, Danny DeVito in 2013, and Michelle Pfeiffer in 2007.
Oh, cool.
Like, yeah, weird. Anyway, yeah, Batman Returns, number 6. What's your number 6?
This is probably the dumbest sounding one on my list, especially if you've not seen the film.
Okay.
It's Kung Fu Panda 2.
Okay.
Because with that title, you are well within your rights to be like, what the bloody hell are you talking about? Kung Fu Panda. Because I remember, and we come up with this every time, that list that I could go for of films that Georgia has said to me, no, watch it. No, watch it. Kung Fu Panda, I think you'll really like it. And I'm like, give over. Kung Fu Panda. What a stupid premise. Jack Black is voicing a panda who wants to learn Kung Fu. How childish and stupid does that sound? And you genuinely have one of the best Kung Fu movies of the 21st century.
Oh, my God.
Genuinely. Have you seen it?
No.
Right. Kung Fu Panda is and I mean Kung Fu. Like, there are probably better martial arts films in terms of fight choreography and stuff like that. But in terms of those kind of teachings within martial arts,
right,
like it gets that across to a Western audience so well. And it even manages to incorporate the fact that he's a panda into why he ends up being good at martial arts. It's really clever. Okay. And there's this message of, in the first one anyway, of you can't teach everyone the same way. Like the master, voiced by Dustin Hoffman and perfectly acted by him as well, realizes that he can't teach Poe, the panda, the way he taught other warriors because they were like already talented. It's like us trying to teach that one kid a certain way, and it just isn't working because they're not interested. But if you find that other way to teach them, they could be a genius. And it's up to you to find that, and there's a gorgeous message of that. This film, the sequel, helps deal with childhood trauma, helps deal with past regressions, like hidden memories and stuff like that, also while incorporating that Kung Fu message into it. The scope of it gets bigger, and the villain in the first one is good. His name is Tai Lung, and he's played by Ian McShane, and he's a good run-of-the-mill villain.
Yeah.
This film has Gary Oldman playing a peacock called Lord Shen, and he is terrifying. He's unsettling, he's funny,
Sold.
he's devious, he's evil, absolutely evil. And his main thing is that he's weaponized gunpowder.
Okay.
And it's Kung Fu's attempt to like adapt to that.
Yeah.
And it deals with like past trauma and stuff like that. And it is an unbelievable film. It has absolutely no right being as good as it is, as being a sequel to a film called Kung Fu Panda. And then
how is a peacock weaponized gunpowder?
Well, they're just anthropomorphized
right, okay.
animals.
So is he shooting something?
He's made cannons. So his family
Right.
discovered gunpowder for like fireworks and stuff. He
Yeah.
figured out that you can use it to make cannons. So he's made a load of cannons and he's used that to like take over places.
I don't know why I'm trying to ask logical questions about a cartoon.
Yeah, there is a prophecy angle in this to a point, but it deals with it. So, and there's like Kung Fu movies do often have that kind of chosen one prophecy, but the way they handle it,
yeah,
it isn't that he's just instantly good. He has to come to a very, very painful and poignant realization in an incredibly beautifully animated scene. And like there's these flashback moments in a slightly different style of animation. Honestly, get on Netflix. Kung Fu Panda 1 and 2. 3 is good. You can miss it if you want, but it is a nice continuation of the story.
Right.
But honestly, I cannot stress enough how good Kung Fu Pandas 1 and 2 are. And they have no right to be based on but you've got a really good acting cast throughout it. Because you've got throughout them all, you've got Jack Black, Dustin Hoffman, Angelina Jolie, David Cross, Lucy Liu, Jackie Chan, Seth Rogen. And you think, oh, they're just big names. They all do a fantastic job.
Yeah.
And they're really Angelina Jolie, especially, you wouldn't have her down as a voice actress, and she's unbelievable. She's so good. I cannot sing this film's praises enough.
Nice. I'll have to give it a go. Right, into top fives. My number 5 is the second legacy sequel on the list.
Maverick?
Shut up, Minnie. It came out this year. Yeah, it's Top Gun Maverick. Shut your face.
I did forget about Maverick as well, actually.
Oh my god.
That should be on my list.
What a film. What a film.
Did you expect it to be anywhere near that good?
No, and I'll tell you why, right? Because up until the Monday before I went to go and watch Maverick. So I went to go and watch Maverick on a Saturday morning IMAX showing. I hadn't seen Top Gun. I'd never bothered with it. I just thought, right, it's one of those films that's passed me by, whatever.
I still haven't seen it.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Right? Now, they were advertising Maverick for ages. And again, in the first wave, like pre-COVID, when I knew that it was coming in 2020, I was like, well, I'm not going to watch that because I've not seen the other one. And if I'm honest, I just thought that's just going to be a bit naff or a bit all right. You know, it's not going to be amazing at all. And then when it came out this year or 2022, the groundswell that happened of all these people saying legitimately, this might be the best film of the year. Legitimately, this might be the best film of the decade. Like, you need to go and see this in the biggest scene possible. And I thought, this can't be true. This can't be right. So I went, and oh my God, that last hour, Jesus Christ. I watched Top Gun. And again, similar to Blade Runner and similar to another one that's going to come up on my list next, actually, I wasn't that much of a fan of the original. You know, I watched Top Gun and I was like, well, it's just loads of 80s beef, innit? And like, you know, really sort of close-up shots of cockpits and stuff.
Yeah.
And then the fact that the technology's come along and the way of filming's come along and that they've practiced it with Mission Impossible, some of those sequences Like
They're
the
unreal,
best
aren't they?
flying sequences you'll ever see on a film or
Wasn't
in a
it Tony
film.
Scott's son who directed it or something?
No, it was Joseph Kaczynski who did Oblivion with Tom Cruise, and some other stuff. He's done quite
Well,
a
this is
stuff
a
with.
much better film. Much better
Yeah,
film.
Oblivion wasn't great, was it?
Mm.
But yeah, I absolutely loved it, and again, it's just one of those films that I could just watch over and over and over again.
Yeah,
And
where
go
would
on.
Maverick come in my list? Because Maverick should be in my list as well. This is
Highest
mad
grossing
though.
film of Tom Cruise's career.
This is mad though that the Raid 2 and Top Gun Maverick would probably cut out Shrek 2 and Toy Story 2, which are big parts of my childhood. But I don't know exactly where they go, but yeah,
If you were to say
right
to
being
me
as
at the
good as it
beginning of the
was.
year, tell us what your top 10 films of the year are going to be. Now, at this point, I've not done that podcast. I've not done that video. So, I have a decent thing of what I think number 1, number 2, number 3 are going to be. Top Gun Maverick's in there. And I would not have said that at the beginning of the year.
I remember cringing at the original trailer where you just see him like doing that in the snow a bit, and then you watch the film. Like John Hamm is incredible in it. Like I never would have thought to cast him as the stick in the mud, and he's fantastic as it.
And the young cast as well,
Iceman, the return of
Oh,
Iceman,
that
the way they got him
scene.
back.
Oh my God. Yeah. Loved
Perfect.
it.
It's so
Absolutely
sad what's
loved
happened
it.
to Val Kilmer, because I keep seeing like snippets of him in like The Ghost in the Darkness or like Tombstone.
Yeah.
He's unbelievable in
I
Tombstone.
really want to see, and I've had it recorded for ages. I really want to watch the Val documentary. I've still not watched it yet. So I'm gonna have to try and get to that. But yeah, my number 5 is Top Gun Maverick because it's just
a shout and a half, to be fair. That is a shout and a half.
Fantastic.
I never would have thought that ripping off Star Wars would have made for such a good finale, because it's like, we can't top that. But they did top it because they actually talked about the dangers in the trench.
Like, as soon as it happened, I thought, oh, this is just A New Hope. Like, that didn't
when they talked about the mission and how to go through it.
Yeah, and the idea you're dropping a bomb specifically here, and then you've got to,
then you've got to pull up. If you go too high, there'll be SAM sites after you and stuff like that. You got Neil deGrasse Tyson ruining it by saying, if a plane really did that, it'd disintegrate. Shut up, Neil.
Shut up, Neil. We don't need you right now, Neil.
No. So go on Joe Rogan's podcast and pretend that you're an intellectual. Piss off.
I'd come on here and pretend you're an intellectual if you want. I won't invite him though, because he's sworn twice on this.
I did make a mistake with that film though, because we watched it in Everyman, and it's not an Everyman film. We should have watched it on a bigger screen.
It's an IMAX film.
It was so just what a film. I love the bit where, because there was a danger as well that Maverick is just going to be like, oh, he's behind it or whatever. They're going to go for that. But there's that opening shot of him like flying with established pilots and just battering him.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, we're actually going to listen to you.
All right. What's your number 5?
You have mentioned it. It did not make your list. I don't know how. Aliens.
I feel like your next few are going to be quite a few of these that I didn't mention, that I mentioned and that aren't on my list.
I'll be amazed if one of them isn't. I will be. Aliens, I do disagree with the contention that it's like unequivocally better than the first film. I get why people would prefer it. I think if you're into your horror, Alien is easily a better horror film. Mm-hmm. Easily. That sense of dread throughout it, the way it's shot as a horror film. But the thing I love about Alien is what makes Aliens such a good sequel, if that makes sense. Like,
right.
I've said it before, the thing about Alien is it's very naturalistic. They're saying things that you can imagine people saying. You can't hear them reading lines, whereas you can in Aliens, because it's James Cameron and it's a much bigger production and bigger sets and stuff like that. But the stakes in it are fantastic. The way they introduce an alien queen into it is amazing. The Marines all having actual personalities and not just being like there's the odd one who you don't really speak to, but like the Marines we get any real time with, Hicks, Hudson, Vasquez, Sergeant Apone, Gorman, they all have quite distinct personalities, and you get to know them and you get to like them, and you're sad when they die or they get hurt or whatever. Carter Burke, absolute slime ball. Paul Reiser from Beverly Hills Cop and The Boys are the only other two things I've ever seen him in. I really like Paul Reiser. He's fantastic. And then you've got Ellen Ripley, who is like, if I'd been on the female character podcast with you, I probably would have put her at number one.
Right.
Like you've got like her, Sarah Connor, probably Mulan from the Disney film. Like they are in and around my top three female characters in film, and like Ellen Ripley is just perfect because she's not perfect. She is terrified to be there, and she's a human being, so she's afraid. She's allowed to cry, and it's not like, oh, you're crying because you're a woman. No, you're crying because you're seeing an alien rip its way out of somebody's chest, and it's incredibly traumatic for you. And yet you still have the wherewithal to try and comfort this child. And I like the touch that because she's a mum, she knows how to get Newt out of her shell and stuff like that. And she builds that relationship with Newt off the back of that. Yeah, just everything about it. The pace is electric. It's perfect. You love just how downtrodden these Marines are, how everything just keeps on going wrong. And it's like, oh, Christ, we've got to get out of here before it explodes. Because initially you are ready for that film of they're going to try and survive until rescue arrives. And then it's like, no, you're not waiting that long. You got like 4 hours. And then this entire area is going to undergo a thermonuclear detonation. Oh, great. Fantastic. Okay, cool. Bye. And then the sequences with the alien queen. Pretty sure that's the Stan Winston effect. Stan Winston, what a boy.
Think so, yeah.
Absolute unit. Between that, Predator, T-Rex,
yeah,
Stan Winston, absolute legend. And that alien queen, like, I just point to that alien queen and how she moves for anyone who wants to be like, oh, well, if we want a creature like that in film, we've got to use CGI to like get it right and get it done. Look at her. Look at how she moves. That is way scarier than any monster you could make on a computer for me. I get the idea of like supplementing stuff, like in Prey, they supplement the Predator with a bit of CGI to have like blood effects and make the hands move a little bit more dexterously. That's fine. That's treatment because there's actual practical effects underpinning it. But what a film. Like, I do get why people say it's better because it probably is a more complete film, but I am a bit of a horror purist. So I do like a film that's not afraid to slow down and not have a lot of like, action in it and a lot of big loud moments. I like how quiet Alien is and stuff like that. But the way this builds on it and popularized it, like, it's incredible.
Yeah. Have you played Alien Isolation?
I still haven't. I love it, but I'm not going up
scary.
against that xenomorph. Yeah, I'm not going up against a xenomorph that knows where I'm hiding. Are you mad?
Yeah.
I'm bad enough. I'm bad enough with like scripted AI where they can kind of follow you, but no, look, that alien is too goddamn clever.
Yeah.
Not having it. And those working Joes can get in. They were so well designed to be terrifying. Just
no, it's scary. Right. My number 4, excuse me, is a literal legacy sequel. It's I like this. This is the one that I think people would go, "Are you mad?" Because it's not even that good of a film. Tron Legacy. I love Tron Legacy. I absolutely adore it. And again, like, I don't like the original Tron, but I could sit and watch this all day. It looks beautiful when it's shot outside the grid. It looks beautiful when it's shot inside the grid. I adore it. I absolutely adore it. And I mean, it's another Kaczynski film. I stopped myself from saying that with Top Gun Maverick. What's up with you, man? Oh dear.
So
I love it. I think it's great.
Just to remind myself of some of the films
Yeah.
that did not make your cut.
Yeah. Go on.
So my number one isn't in
Yeah.
there. Fine, because I
No.
know you. Wait, fine. This. What?
Do you know why? What's the issue?
Like, you said it yourself. It's not even that good a film.
Not like, hang on. General sort of consensus is that it's not that good of a film. I love it.
General
I adore it.
consensus,
I think it's great.
The
I think
films you
it's
have
great.
overlooked
Yeah.
to include that
Yeah.
is
You know
it's
why?
tantamount.
Because
It is tantamount to Gemma Hale putting at number 10 of her top 10 films of all goddamn time Despicable Me. It is
it's not.
that
It's not. It's
egregious.
not that bad.
It
It's
is
not
that
that bad.
egregious.
It's not that bad. Like, Builds on the World is a superior sequel. It's better than the original.
It didn't have a high bar, Adam.
Well, sometimes you've just got to win big. And
oh my God.
Genuinely, love it. Love it.
It's
my list. My top 10 sequels.
I'm genuinely at
my
a loss.
favorite sequels. Like, there was a summer where I wasn't working, Amy was working, we were between uni. I watched it at least 20 times.
I think I've seen it twice.
Well, that's poor on you then.
Forgettable.
No.
Just
beautiful. Yeah.
I'm tempted to walk. I'm tempted to omit this next one from my list entirely just to spite you.
Don't you dare. That would just be catastrophic. So yeah, my number 4 is Tron Legacy.
Jesus Christ. above all of the stuff that you've said so far as well.
Yeah.
Above all of the stuff you've said so far, better than forgetting your list. Spider-Man 2 was in there, wasn't it?
Yeah, Blade Runner 2049.
You put this above Blade Runner 2049, Top Gun Maverick,
The Raid 2,
the Raid 2,
Batman Returns, 1, 2. Oh my God. Two Towers, Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Yeah. Some men just want to watch the world burn. However, speaking of which, talk to us about your number 4.
I am genuinely gobsmacked. I almost want to just pay lip service to The Dark Knight now and say nothing about it, because I wonder if we're going to hear everything about it later. Oh my God. Genuinely, my head is gone, people of Podcast Land. The idea...
It's not that bad.
I'm sorry, my head is absolutely gone. I'm not in this headspace anymore. The idea that Tron Legacy not only has made your top 10 ahead of some of the stuff that you've talked about, has made your top 5 ahead of some of the stuff that has made it into your list, where you've had 2 films. You've said 2 films where I have realised, holy Christ, that should have been in my top 10.
Is this not one of them?
That has gone above it. Oh my God. Anyway, I have actually watched this again recently, Dark Knight, because every time I've talked about it in the past, it has been a while since I've seen it. And whilst I have come to the conclusion that I think I prefer the Batman, it is marginal gains, because I think I just prefer the vibe of the Batman. I prefer how it looks. I prefer that it's a dirty, dank, horrible place. This is a very clean Gotham. And that's fine. You know, it's just a shame because Chris Nolan had created this amazing Gotham in Batman Begins. But all of the problems that are present in Batman Begins, with like the cinematography not being great, especially for some of the action scenes and like the tracking shots of the Tumblr and stuff like that, fully addressed here. The highway scene probably is still the best live action Batman set piece. Like, it's incredible, that kind of transporting Harvey Dent scene. Christian Bale kind of wavers for me. I'm in a positive mood with him right now. Despite what Georgia says, I really like Aaron Eckhart as Harvey Dent.
Does George not like him?
Nah, she doesn't like him.
Okay.
I don't know whether it's Aaron Eckhart she doesn't like or Harvey Dent as presented here. I think she said, and it is a fair point, that it's a bit of a shift from him going from like Gotham's White Knight to being an absolute psycho.
Yeah, I'll
Which
take
I
that.
get, because I
Yeah.
love how the cartoon did it, is that he was battling with that, but he was managing to do it privately. And did I tell you the point where there's been a suggestion where you end the Dark Knight at a certain point where it's like Harvey screaming, like, so that it's silent and Harvey like sees his coin, he flips it over and he's in the hospital bed and he's screaming, he rips off his thing and you just see him screaming. It's like that white noise sound effect, and then it should cut to black, and then that's the film.
Right, okay.
And it's like a really interesting point to like, because it does drag a bit, Dark Knight, and there is a lot of, oh god, now we're doing this. Oh god, now we're doing this.
Yeah, there's one more set piece I would say that they need, you know, in the boat sequence is probably one too many.
Yeah, but it's still fantastic, and it gives us more Heath Ledger, who is the best thing in any Batman film. He just is.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's a stunning film, and there'll probably be a point where I go and watch the Batman again at some point, and then watch this and think, you know what, actually, no, Dark Knight is still my favorite. But I think that's more of a testament to how good the Batman was, because the Dark Knight, for a long time, was head and shoulders the best Batman film of all time, let alone just of the Nolan series. Like, what a film. And it rightly was, you know, an absolute cultural phenomenon. And I've said it before as well, I was really scared that Heath Ledger's like posthumous awards and all the adulation he got was just because he died and that people were trying to pay him lip service. But no, it is fully deserved. He was absolutely stunning in this role. And for him to win anything from the Academy for a comic book film, especially in 2008, is pretty unreal. So, yeah, it's an unreal film that I imagine I can stop talking about, because I imagine we'll hear more about it later.
Yeah, we might do. If you
Come on,
like
let's hear about Little Rascals 2 or something stupid like that now.
If you didn't like my number 4, you're not going to like my number 3.
Oh, Christ, go on.
Because I can't help myself. Like,
just a reminder, I'm the edgelord, apparently.
I love a comedy.
I'm the edgelord.
Right, I love a comedy. But I think more recently, very few actually make me laugh. This was probably one of the last films that I saw where I thought, you know what, that's really, really funny. Hangover Part 2. Ollie, I'm joking. As if, come on, man. Come on.
Don't do that to me, man.
I kept thinking, I thought, what
because
film can I
Hangover
say?
Part 2 is the reason Kung Fu Panda doesn't get the recognition it deserves.
What?
Genuinely. They came out at the same time.
Oh, okay.
So more people went to see Hangover 2, so no one went to see Kung Fu Panda.
No, it's the worst. It's the worst of the three. My number 3 is X-Men 2.
Okay.
What's up with that? What's up with that? I expected it to be on your list.
No. I like it. It's just, I have watched them back, well, especially 1 and 2. I have watched them back recently. They're a little dated.
Fair enough. I've not watched them back in a while.
Yeah, I've watched them back.
But this is based off, 13-year-old Adam really loving X-Men.
Funnily enough, Georgia was looking at sequels for me yesterday, and Logan came up. And if I was allowed to include that, absolutely, I'd be including Logan.
Yeah, I almost wanted to argue for Days of Future Past.
I quite like Days of Future Past.
I like Days of Future Past, but it's a kind of like, it's a second to First Class, but then it ends up being
but that's its own series, isn't it? It is very much its own.
But then it ends up being a before and after for all the others as well. So it's
and I was thinking that about Prey as well. Does that count as a sequel? Well, no, because it's actually a prequel and it's however many going forward.
Yeah,
and Predator 2 is gash, but X-Men, X-Men 2 is good. It's good. Yeah, it is just.
I really enjoy it.
Tidge bit dated.
I remember at the time, so this is my my 13-year-old film criticism. coming out. In that, my auntie asked me what it was like, and I said it's better because there's new characters in it. There's better characters in it. Some characters do more things, and instead of it all being set in the school, they actually go out for a bit.
Yeah.
And she was like, I don't know what you mean because I've not seen the first one. I said, well, why are you asking me about the second one then? So I love it because there's a lot about Wolverine finding himself. There's a lot about the younger kids almost taking over, that sort of Iceman and Pyro relationship that happens, him getting influenced by Magneto. I love Nightcrawler. I love Alan Cummings' Nightcrawler.
He's great.
I think that's really good.
I do remember at the same time being confused though, because I was watching the cartoon and Mystique is meant to be Nightcrawler's mum.
Yes, that's yeah. I know what you mean.
And those two in that film, that doesn't work.
No, it doesn't work. I remember going back and thinking the same thing. And then the whole Dark Phoenix tease at the end that everyone was sort of falling themselves around about, you know. Yeah, I really like it. I think it's, and again, who's his face? Brian Cox as
William Stryker.
Stryker, yes. I was going to say Singer, but that's the guy that we shouldn't really talk about.
No.
Yeah. You know, black marks on Hollywood.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I mean, that Wolverine chopping his way through the school sequence is incredible.
Yes.
Of him going like full feral, just like stabbing people.
I really enjoyed the sort of like really short, subtle hints at other characters that you knew. So like even Colossus popping out at one point.
Yeah.
You know, and stuff like that. Because I was into the lore then. I'd watched the cartoon, I'd played the games, I knew who these people were. So
it's nice to see Rebecca Romaine in it as herself.
Yeah.
As well, however briefly. And then she injects literal iron into the guy and he somehow doesn't die. But,
Lady Deathstrike.
Oh, yeah, that was cool. Like, it was weird how they did that.
The fight was good. Yeah.
Oh, the fight was incredible.
The fight was good.
Yeah,
and
so that's whole sequence with whole sequence with Storm dropping her accent from the first film because the accent in the first film was a bit weird.
Yeah. What happens to Toads when they're struck by lightning?
Yeah, they do the same thing that happens to everything else. What crap line? That's a crap line. So my number 3.
Go on.
Before we talked about The Raid being one of 2 contenders for the perfect action film. This is the other contender, and you have briefly spoken about it, to my chagrin. It is Terminator 2.
Yeah.
And I mean, everything we've said, again, it's a very typically James Cameron sequel in that the first Terminator film, even though he did do it, is very much a horror. Like, if you view it from the lens of it's a horror, it becomes a much better film. Whereas this is an action film, and the music is fantastic. It's really foreboding. The way it brings in the kind of Skynet lore. Had they just left it here a bit, because I like that they didn't include the original ending, because they filmed an ending where you've got an old Sarah Connor living in a peaceful 2019 or whatever.
Right.
And John isn't the leader of the resistance. He's picking up his child because Skynet never happened. I liked the ambiguous ending of, the headlights going down the road. The idea, the future's not set or something like that. I mean, I do like what they went in Terminator 2, where it was like, no, screw that. It's inevitable. We're sending you here to hide. But yeah, Terminator 2, how Edward Furlong manages to not be incredibly annoying in that role is beyond me. Because he should be the most slappable kid in the world.
Yeah.
I do really want to slap him when those 2 guys come over to help him and he calls them a douchebag and gets the Terminator to nearly kill them.
Well,
Yeah, but that relationship between him and the Terminator is so sweet. Him rebuilding that relationship with his mom is really sweet and really touching as well. And the T-1000 is one of the best movie villains of all time.
Yeah.
It just is. Imagine, you just talking about X-Men, imagine having Wolverine and Mystique rolled into one. That is crazy how powerful that is. And I like as well that they deliberately went, they probably thought, we're not going to get anyone bigger than Arnold, but they didn't try as well. They went, no, we're going to go sleeker. We're going to go more streamlined, because it's almost like they kind of predicted how machines in the future were going to go. It's like machines
Yeah.
don't improve by getting bigger; they improve by getting smaller and more compact and more efficient. And Robert Patrick as the T-1000 is incredible. They did apparently ruin that little plot twist in the trailers, which is stupid. Can you imagine, like, the trailer just being that moment where they meet in the corridor around John and they pull guns on each other like that, and that's the full trailer.
Yeah.
And that's it. And you're like, oh, it's gonna go down. And then you get in and you think, oh, the hero's down. Oh wait, he's got weird silver thing. Oh my god, he's a robot. Can you imagine where your brain goes there?
Yeah.
And like the idea that in the first film, he couldn't talk to people, and it makes sense that you're going to get Arnold doing it because he's not the best talker. Whereas Robert Patrick plays a much more, he can talk to people, he can actually infiltrate. And it's incredible. The action set pieces are all incredible. The truck tracing the dirt bike with the Harleys. You've got the breaking into Cyberdyne. You've got breaking into the hospital. You've got the truck. You've got the helicopter chase as well.
Yes.
James Cameron actually got like that. There's that maneuver where I think it's the SWAT truck and the helicopter chasing it, and there's no CGI. The helicopter is coming up to the bridge and has to quickly go like that. And that was apparently a crazy dangerous maneuver. And there weren't a lot of pilots willing to try it out. And then one guy was like, "Hold my beer." And he just nails it. And it's like, again, like I know it's a different kind of action movie to The Raid. Like The Raid's obviously like his hand-to-hand stuff is absolutely unrivaled, like throughout cinema, I could argue. But the pace of this, the plot of it, the characterization in this, the way that Sarah Connor has come on as a character, this is the film which puts Sarah Connor at like my number 2. Just behind Ellen Ripley. Like Sarah Connor from this film especially.
Yeah.
She's amazing. And Linda Hamilton absolutely smashes it. Everyone smashes it in this film. What's our guy called? The guy who plays Miles? Joe Morton. Joe Morton. Miles. Yeah. He's one of those. You know Joe Morton, don't you?
No, you've lost me.
He's in what would you know him in? He's in Justice League as Cyborg's dad.
Oh, hang on. Joe Morton. That's the one, was it? Oh, aye, yeah.
Yeah, Joe Morton is Miles. I can't remember his second name. But he's the guy who creates Skynet, and they tell him that Skynet ends up destroying the world, so he agrees to help them.
Miles Bennett Dyson. Yeah.
Miles Bennett Dyson, yeah. It's just,
he was in Speed 2 Cruise Control. Oh.
Well, he was in Speed.
Oh, was he?
Yeah.
Oh, I missed that. Oh, of course he was.
Yeah, he's like the commanding officer of like.
Of course he was.
Harry's SWAT unit. But yeah, Terminator 2, perfect action film, perfectly acted. And I'm sorry, like a lot of people like hate on Arnold's ability to act. You look at him in this, especially. He's perfect. He's a good actor.
He is.
He's limited in what he can. He's limited in what he can do. But if you give him the right role, he's really good. He does some really subtle things in this film really, really well.
If you cast him as a robot, he's all right.
Right, but he's a robot who ends up learning how to like feel and stuff, and there's like little things that he gets perfect, like little wry smiles and little looks to the camera, and the way he learns to hug John. It's still a bit awkward because he doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah.
But like that hug at the end, it's really like he sacrificed himself and he gives the thumbs up, and it's really sweet. But yeah, unreal film.
The last 2 surprises of the podcast then. I mean, mine's not something new. Captain America: Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
I mean, what else do we say about it? It just took that character and instantly made him my favorite character in the MCU.
We have done it before, but we didn't give Robert Redford enough love.
Yes, Alexander Pierce. Come on, like
I reckon that was a moment in the MCU as well, because like before that, it was respected, sure, and like Avengers did really well. But I imagine getting an actor of Robert Redford's caliber. I mean,
everyone now is like,
like they did have Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah.
But that was one film, and people were like, "Oh, is he going to rock up again or whatever?" Whereas
But he
Robert
had
Redford
the gravitas for you to go, this feels like a political thriller right now.
yeah,
You know,
yeah, you
this
needed
feels,
him as
yeah,
Pierce.
yeah. I don't really know
Just
what else to say. It's just a great film.
all the action sequences are really good.
Yeah.
It's really creepy seeing Zola again as like some primitive German AI. That was pretty cool.
Using Black Widow as a supporting character worked really
Yeah, like
well. Yeah,
that's what kind of threw her into the mix a lot more, because she was in Iron Man
yeah,
2 and it was just like, oh, John Favreau's going to watch it get changed in the back of the car, the creepy
yeah.
boy.
Eye candy in Iron Man 2, but then
Yeah,
like badass in
yeah.
Captain America
Because
2.
it would have been really easy to make her a romantic interest for Cap, and they didn't.
Yeah.
And I really like that.
I'm glad that they didn't. I'm glad that they
Yeah,
are,
I'm
to
so glad
quote
they didn't.
Stranger Things, platonic with a capital P. You
Hmm.
know, what's your two?
Yeah. You have mentioned it.
Oh,
The Two Towers.
okay.
Lord of the Rings. The Two Towers. I mean, this was the second film I put onto the list as well.
Right.
Because The Lord of the Rings, despite what people might think about me, is the best trilogy. I'm just saying,
Okay.
of any series of films, it is, in
Sound
terms
like
of
Amy's dad.
consistency across all three of them.
Yeah.
It is the best. Like, I am the biggest fan of a certain other trilogy going, as I will
Yeah.
come to talk about when we know. But like in terms of all three films, is perfect. And for me, does differ from people. Georgia prefers Fellowship, and I do get that.
I prefer
But
Fellowship.
she's one of those. She prefers that kind of springboard to a journey, like seeing the
Mm-hmm.
team get together and stuff like that. And yeah, I do 100% get that. But Two Towers, I don't think people were that hyped on Lord of the Rings. Like, they liked it, but Two Towers was the one that made people stand up and notice. And we're like,
Yeah.
this is it. This is
I
proper.
think with Fellowship, it was more of a kind of like, we all know the book. We
Yeah.
all know what this thing is. We'll go and watch it. Oh, that was actually pretty good, weren't it?
Yeah.
And
Whereas Two
then we're
Towers
going, well,
was,
they're going to do another one. Yeah, Two Towers was like, oh, they're really going somewhere with this now.
they're really going somewhere.
And then
like,
Return
there's
of the
not,
King was like, well, we should really give you something, shouldn't we?
yeah. And then it's just, there's so much to love about it. Like the Helm's Deep sequence,
Helm's
for me,
Deep.
is the best thing in all three
Jesus
films.
Christ.
Like,
Yeah.
I love the Battle of Gondor, but it is very CGI, and like obviously the CGI in Helm's Deep. But it, like, the Battle of
Helm's Deep is
Gondor.
so like that ran so Game of Thrones could walk.
Yeah, exactly. And even then,
Like,
like, that's better
yeah,
than a lot of stuff you do get in Game of Thrones
yeah,
as well. Like, the Battle of the Bastards in Game of Thrones is pretty hard to top, but that's just because it's so bloody and visceral, and you feel like you're in the middle of a battle zone. And there's loads of times where the main character nearly dies, and just
yeah.
as luck would have it, he doesn't, which is how it works. Whereas this one, like Helm's Deep, everything, like the build up at the beginning with the orcs like slamming everything.
Mm-hmm.
That one guy who doesn't have an eye, who is actually a guy who doesn't have an eye from New Zealand, and Peter Jackson was like, "Oh yeah, mate, do you want to come and be in my film with me?"
What happened to your eye, mate?
Yeah, Lush said, "Yeah, it's fun. It's lovely, yeah." And Gollum. I'm sorry, it's one of the best. How did he not get an Academy Award for that?
Because apparently it doesn't count.
Oh my God.
Even though he's like, because they don't understand at that point, that actually still to this day, they don't understand motion capture.
Yeah, it's horrific, because his acting in that, I remember watching that, his conversation with himself. Because I was quite, we will have been quite young when it came out. What was it, 2003? 2004? Two Towers?
2000, was it not 2002?
It might have been, 2002.
So
it's even earlier. So I will have been about 10 years old, maybe 11, watching this. So my idiot brain took a while to clock. Oh my God.
2002.
He's got two personalities.
Mm.
He's got Gollum and Smeagol. And that moment where it kind of drops on you, if you're not familiar with the story, and the way they film that with like the different cuts to the different angles.
How has it got a budget of $94 million?
I know.
That's nothing.
I know. And how much has it made?
974,
It's
947 even.
it's
Jesus
absolutely
Christ.
unreal. There's not a single wasted moment in it. And
No.
it's one of that, you know how you always tell Ruby about the tarantula?
Yeah.
This has got the Lord of the Rings equivalent in it.
Right.
You know that you know that fact that you can't help but bring up every bloody time you watch it.
Go on then, what shows?
And it's the bit where I can't believe I'm saying you'll have heard it.
Is it where he kicks his?
It's where
Yes.
he kicks the helmet.
Yeah,
So it's like,
yeah.
and there's so many like memes about it. It was like Viggo Mortensen kicks the helmet, boyfriend, don't say it, 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 don't say it. Do you know in this bit he actually broke his toe and that's why he screams out and Christ has said it.
Yes. Yeah, that's it.
It's just with the stuff with the Ents.
I do really want to at some point sit down and watch them again.
I've got the extended editions on Amazon.
I've got my dad got me the 4K last year, so I still need to get to that. Well, my number one's The Dark Knight.
Is it? Oh my god!
Fancy that! I will say this: if we're talking trilogies, I love the Dark Knight trilogy. If we did a podcast, it would be my number one.
Really?
But I don't think it's a perfect trilogy. No, because you do this because you don't like Rises.
Yeah, that's how.
But I do.
Right, but like, I like Return of the Jedi. I accept that it is deeply flawed compared to the other two.
Yeah.
Whereas something like Lord of the Rings, the entire way through. The consistency is just there.
You're like, you've got to look for consistency and stuff.
And this is very inconsistent. Like,
I
Dark
will
Knight
say
is
this.
heads and tails above the other two.
Yeah, it is. But I think Dark Knight Rises feels more like a sequel to Batman Begins than it does The Dark Knight. Because of all the League of Shadows stuff. Yeah.
So that's a bad trilogy, then.
Maybe, yeah. But we're not talking trilogies. Well,
we're talking about unequivocally the best film in that.
So,
trilogy.
like, my sort of reservations to it are that Rises capitalizes more on the whole League of Shadows, the Ra's al Ghul stuff from Begins, whereas
do you think that
the Dark Knight seems to drop it completely.
Do you think that's because Heath Ledger died and they didn't originally plan to go with the League of Shadows stuff?
Possibly, but from what I've heard, the only time that you would have actually have seen Heath Ledger in Rises is during the breakout bit where he would have been in a prison cell in Arkham. So I don't know. I don't know. Because as well, you've got the sort of them not referencing that, but then really in Rises, they don't really reference the Joker at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, but I love Dark Knight. Everyone knows this. It's like I watched it the other day with my year 10s on the last day before we finished. And well, there's two girls in my class. Shout out if they're listening. They know who they are. And one of them seen it. Her friend hadn't seen it. So they were and then there was a point where the girl who hadn't seen it realizes that Gordon's not dead. You know the bit where he takes his mask off?
Yeah.
And she was proper Chris Pratt. Oh, he's not dead. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I loved seeing that.
Yeah, that is a good rug pull, that.
Yeah. But yeah, it's the Dark Knight. You know it. Ollie, talk about your thing.
My thing. Well, I'm sure you do
you, pal. You do you, pal.
I'm sure you're waiting with bated breath to figure out.
I was trying to see if I've got any sort of accoutrement around me for it, but I don't think I have.
How do you not? You like the film series.
I do, but I don't think I've got anything. Oh, wait, hang on. I don't know if this counts.
For the YouTubers.
This is the closest I've got.
Yeah.
So you can have a Mando.
I can have a Mando. We can pretend it's Boba Fett.
Yeah, we'll pretend it's
Boba Fett. In his first official film appearance, theatrical film appearance, in The Empire Strikes Back. Everything that Adam has said about sequels so far, the idea of it needs to expand on the original story, it needs to go bigger, go better, go harder. this is the quintessential example. It really is. Like, as an unfair comparison to say Batman Begins to Dark Knight, Batman Begins was already pretty established as a thing at that point. So it's hard for you to say, well, Dark Knight is what made it bigger and better and put it on the map or whatever. And like for any of these others, I think you can argue that they were already fairly popular. Like maybe Aliens, you could probably argue put it on the map a bit more and made it a bit more popular. But there were plenty of people doing stuff with Alien before. This is what made Star Wars the absolute cultural behemoth that it is today. It just is. As sequels go, I challenge anyone to think of a film that has had a bigger impact on popular culture than Empire. Because it does happen to be my favourite film of all time. And I find it weird, looking back at this, genuinely, how many of my favourite films of all time are sequels. Because sequels, by their very definition, should be a bit weaker, shouldn't they? They shouldn't be held in as high regard. But genuinely, there's a lot of sequels here that made it into my top 10 of all time and still would. And ultimately, I have talked to death about Star Wars. I've talked to death about Empire in particular. But that is the key salient point here. In terms of a sequel, what a sequel is meant to do by its definition, this is the reason you like, for better or worse, you might hate Star Wars. This is to blame. If you love Star Wars, you have this to thank. Because people didn't care about Star Wars that much after episode 1. It was well received, don't get me wrong. This is what opened it up and branched it out so that we've got Mandalorian, so that we've got Andor, so that we've got Jedi Fallen Order, so that we've got Knights of the Old Republic, so that we've got, I don't know, Star Wars Bounty Hunter, Force Unleashed, all these incredible video games, all these incredible comic books, all these incredible TV shows, all this incredible merchandise and all the toys and everything that go with it. For better or worse, it starts with this. It doesn't start with A New Hope. A New Hope is a fantastic film. This is a cultural phenomenon. It just is. And no, I cannot think of another sequel that had anything close to the same effect. I'm open to suggestions. I'm not saying that to be a douche.
No, genuinely, I couldn't give you one, because in terms of plot twists in cinema, in terms of, again, extending on the world, as we keep saying, like there's a reason why when they released A New Hope, it was just Star Wars.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't ever intended to be a, you know, this is this, and then with it, because it was so successful, it was like, oh, actually, we can do something here.
And I'm aware of my own kind of like cognitive dissonance here, because like, say, the main plot twist that everyone knows about, which isn't Adam's favorite plot twist in this film. Adam's favorite plot twist is actually a better plot twist.
Yeah.
But I have as an example, Frozen. I hate the plot twist in that of Hans being the villain, because if you watch the film for what it is and follow the sequential events, you couldn't have seen it coming, and that in and of itself doesn't make it a good plot twist. Like, no, if Vader had taken off his mask, excuse me, and been a squirrel in a suit, I wouldn't have seen that coming either. That's not a good plot twist.
No,
there were breadcrumbs for a good plot twist, and because of that problem of it wasn't a planned sequel, this plot twist does suffer a bit. It is a bit of just a rug pull, and you're expected to go along with it. And then I don't think my main problem with Return of the Jedi is that it doesn't deal with it properly.
Yeah.
If it had dealt with it as Yoda had decided, no, we needed to lie to you, and Obi-Wan said, I really wanted to tell you, but Yoda made me promise, that then puts in a bit of a seed of doubt for Luke and tempts him to go to the dark side and stuff like that. And then he overcomes it and says, no, they made a bad choice, but they were looking out for me or whatever. But the Yoda one, that's an incredible plot twist. And the message behind that, like, you know, the idea of the Force being this mystical thing. And still to this day, the most impressive thing I have seen done with the two as a joint, Yoda lifting the X-Wing like compared to all the stuff in the prequels, way more impressive. The only thing that has come close is Luke projecting himself onto a different planet.
Mhm.
That for me is the only thing that's come close in terms of, oh my god, what am I looking at?
Yeah. Oh,
But yeah, I have spoken about Empire ad nauseum in several podcasts. Just yeah, I'm aware I sound like a bit of a douche when I say it's like, oh, I can't think of anything that's come close in terms. I'd love suggestions. Genuinely, I would love someone to
I
turn
think,
around and say,
like, I'm going against my own number one here, but if The Simpsons were going to do a reference and they did a I Am Your Father and they did a, I don't even know, like, why so serious? I reckon more people are probably going to get the
yeah,
I Am Your Father than the
well,
other.
Toy Story 2. Toy Story 2 did an I Am Your
Yeah,
Father.
yeah, and that's the whole point that you're making, in that, like, it's influenced and infected pop culture more than anything else,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah, whereas like Why So Serious seems like something that would crop up in a lot of DC stuff. Like if like the DC Teen Titans, which is very meta, they would do something like Why So Serious, but they would probably also do an I Am Your Father moment. So
They probably would, yeah.
yeah, and just and Mark Hamill having to act by himself for like 90% of his film time, and yeah, it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. I could go and watch it now. I'm tempted to, genuinely, just to go and watch it. But I genuinely, like, out of the films that we talked about today, I think Raid 2, need to watch again. Top Gun Maverick, as long as I can find it for free somewhere.
It's on Paramount Plus.
I don't have Paramount.
On Boxing Day, I want to
It
say.
might be on Now TV. Maybe.
Possibly. Through that.
I think we've got Now
Tron
TV.
Legacy, it's on Disney Plus.
Your homework is Kung Fu Panda and Kung Fu Panda 2.
All right, okay.
Seriously, lads, I know that sounds stupid. I genuinely know how stupid it sounds.
I've got 3 days before Christmas Eve with Ruby, so we'll have films to watch.
Try and sell it to Ruby for me, because there are, like, it's very accessible for kids as well. Like, and like the prison escape sequence in the first film, like Tai Lung breaks out of prison, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
And there's a nice little nod to like self-fulfilling prophecies in there. It's like, oh, you trying to stop something from happening is what caused it to happen. Because that's quite a common thing in like Kung Fu martial arts teaching. Just the way it incorporates it, it's amazing. Right. I think out of my films, that would be your homework, because I'm pretty sure you've seen everything else.
I think so.
Yeah. I mean, you need to watch Terminator 2 more.
Yeah, to be honest, yeah, I would like to watch it again. Yeah.
I'm not sure what it's on. But yeah,
I think, to be honest, I think I bought it on iTunes a while ago. So I really don't have an excuse, to be honest.
Kung Fu Panda 2. If you want to watch Kung Fu Panda 3, it's okay. It's just a bit of a step down again from 2. It's got J.K. Simmons in it as the villain, though.
Oh, okay. Right.
So it's pretty good, but he's no Gary Oldman.
No, fair enough. Right. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for watching. I may have already done another podcast between this one and our Disney Classics one. I can't remember, because me and Ruby are going to do our top 10s together. That's what we're doing at
of
some
all
point.
Time.
No, of this year.
Ah.
Because she has just seen her 10th film this year. So yeah.
So she's going to rank what she's seen.
She's got a top 10. So that video may already be up. That video may already be up on the channel. So if it is, go back and watch it. If it's not, look out for it over the next couple of days. And Ollie and I will catch you next time, probably for another top 10 at some point when we're off on a half term, maybe. Who knows?
I mean, we enjoy a tier list these days as well.
We do. We keep doing some tier lists and keep doing all that kind of jazz.
Be DreamWorks next, wouldn't it? We're running low on
yeah, we'll have to do. Yeah, we'll have to think about what we can do next. Right. So, as always, stay safe, look after each other. If you want to go and support the podcast, go over to our sponsor raffle, Tees, and use code Farrand for 15% off your order. And we will see you next time.